In this video, I'm going to show you a couple different ways to attach a keyring or make a hole for your keychain. So the first and probably simplest way is to just put a hole in your object. So I'm going to grab my cylinder hole tool and I'm going to hold shift so that when I scale it down, I scale it evenly. And I had mentioned in my criteria that you wanted your hole to be at least 0.25. Or excuse me, at least 0.2 to make sure that it was going to be big enough to run your keyring through. So I'm going to do 0.2. And then because it's scaled it very short, it'll probably be shorter than my butterfly. I'm going to drag it tall and then pull it into where I want it to go. So I'll look at my top view. And right now it's in a perspective view. If you want to switch to flat view, you can see really clearly where that hole is exactly going to go. And then in order to cut out that hole, you're going to draw a box around both objects, or you can select both with the shift key and click group. So now I have a hole. Another way would be to use some of these tools to create a keyring. So you could grab the torus tool, or the tube tool works pretty well as well. And then you've got this little arrow up and down that gives you some more control over this shape. So you can play with the radius to see what happens, and you can play with the tube. You can play with the sides. This is kind of fun because it kind of gives it a more geometric shape. And then you can also play with the steps that actually kind of give it more of a, you can make some different cool looking ideas here. So find what works for you. Scale it down to the size that you like. You can click on these numbers to make them the same. So if I wanted this to be like 0.75, click here, 0.75. And then it would be good to probably make them the same height. So you can click on it here and change that number. My butterfly was 0.2, so I'll make my ring 0.2. You could even make this a little bit lower if you wanted to. What you don't want to do is lift it up, because then when you go to 3D print, you're asking the printer to print out in the middle of the air, which it does not like to do. It'll completely mess up. It can build a support up to it, but then when you break away the support, the back side of this will be very bumpy. So if you want to make sure it lands exactly on the bottom of the work plane, while it's selected, just hit the letter D and it will drop down. So you can play around with that, make it the same size, or make it smaller to make it easier to get on and off a keyring. And then depending on where you want to put it, you're going to want to group these two things together. So I'm going to select my ring. I'm going to click shift, select my butterfly, and group those together. So that's another way to make a loop. And then even a third way, I thought it could be kind of fun. You could use that tube tool to, there's also this ring tool that makes a really nice skinnier ring if you want it to be thinner to get on and off. You can play around with this here, change some different stuff about it. But I thought even just like a letter from the characters, from the text and numbers, you could grab this letter D and even use that as a keyring. So I'm going to delete these and show you what that might look like. If you want to change it later and you've already grouped these together, if you ungroup it, then you can start deleting those things. If I ungroup it again, even further, then it'll pull this part out. So if I wanted to keep this and get rid of this, just keep ungrouping it, and then move that one out of the way, delete it, and I'm back to a plain butterfly, and I can keep this one if I want to. But in this case, I'm going to try just seeing what I can do with this letter D, because it's got kind of a cool shape. I can, stretch it out try some different stuff here. You can spin it. And so it doesn't work perfectly for this particular idea. Maybe up on the ring here. And then I don't know if there's a way to make my D skinnier. I'm getting really silly here. I was playing around to try to see if I could make the D skinnier, and it doesn't seem to work how I thought. So maybe somebody else can figure that one out for me. But you could try using some of the letters because they have a, oops, I just lost it. Oh, there it is. I'm going to hit the letter D to put it back right on my work plane. So anyway, you can spin this. You can spin this to match it up with your butterfly wing. Let's see, here we go. And then I could incorporate it onto that. So if something like that worked for you, and then I can hook these together, select both of them, click join, and I guess my D was just a little bit taller. So I might have to ungroup that and then grab that letter, and I gotta make that exactly 0.2 if I want them to be. Now they'll be the exact same height. Group them together. Okay, so that's just another way to add a ring. Playing around, you could use the C or anything that has a hole in it. You could play around with it and incorporate it into your, the U could be useful. Spinning it around and locking it in there. You could create a little tag like that. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and do that right now just so you can see what it looks like. So anyway, letters, click shift, are one of the ways that you can add a little ring on there.